It was a Friday night, the kind of night that felt different from the rest. Eva, my wife, had been acting strangely lately. It was subtle, almost imperceptible at first. A few extra nights out with her friends, her phone always facing down when she was near me, and the way she'd become distant in our conversations. At first, I convinced myself I was overthinking it. After all, she was my wife. We'd been together for nearly 5 years, and I couldn't fathom that she would betray me. But tonight, there was something in the air that made me uneasy. She left the house earlier than usual, wearing a sleek black dress that clung to her curves just right. She looked stunning, as always, but there was something about her that felt off. She had this energy, an almost restless vibe, like she was escaping something. I tried to shake off the feeling and focus on other things, but my mind kept drifting back to her. No matter how hard I tried, the growing sense that something was wrong gnawed at me. Time crawled by. I busied myself with little tasks, but my thoughts kept returning to Eva. She had said she'd be home by midnight, but as the clock struck 1 in the morning, I couldn't ignore the nagging sense of worry. I reached for my phone for what felt like the 100th time, hoping for a text, a call, anything, but there was nothing. I tried to tell myself it was just a late night out with her friends, but deep down, I knew that wasn't it. Eva wasn't the type to stay out this late, without a word. And then, like a cruel twist of fate, I heard the familiar sound of her heels clicking on the pavement outside. My heart began to race. The door creaked open, and there she was, Eva, standing in the doorway just as she had when she left. But something was different. Her eyes were glassy, distant, and there was a certain confident energy in her posture that I didn't recognize. "You're back late," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, though my heart was pounding in my chest. Eva didn't respond right away. She just stood there, almost as if she were weighing her words carefully before speaking. Finally, she stepped inside, and I noticed it. The faint but unmistakable scent of another man's cologne mixed with a trace of alcohol. Her lipstick was smeared, and her dress was creased, as though it had been tugged and pulled in a way that wasn't entirely her doing. The anger bubbled up inside me, but I forced myself to swallow it, holding back the fury that threatened to spill over. I needed to hear her out first. "How was your night?" I asked, my voice calm, betraying none of the storm brewing inside me. Eva avoided my gaze, her eyes darting nervously around the room. There was a long pause, and then she let out a small laugh. But it wasn't the carefree, fun laugh I was used to. It sounded hollow, almost forced, like she was trying to convince herself as much as she was trying to convince me. "It was fine," she said, her voice distant, as though she were speaking from far away. "Just a bit of fun, nothing too crazy." I could feel my pulse quicken, a cold chill settling over the room. Something had shifted. An invisible wall had gone up between us. I couldn't deny it anymore. The signs, the subtle shifts, the unexplained absences, the distance in her voice, had all been leading up to this moment. "Did you meet someone else tonight?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The question hung in the air like a weight, suffocating and final. Eva froze. Her face drained of color, and for a fleeting moment, she looked like a deer caught in headlights. That hesitation, that brief flicker of guilt in her eyes, told me everything I needed to know. She didn't need to say another word. I didn't mean for it to happen," she stammered, her eyes shifting uneasily. "I never wanted to hurt you, but I didn't need her to finish." I could already hear the truth in her voice. The hurt, the guilt, the confession unspoken but clear. She had cheated on me. The secrecy, the late nights, the emotional distance, they all made sense now. And now, she stood before me, trying to justify it, to explain it, but there was no explanation that would make it okay. There was no excuse for what she had done. A wave of loss and betrayal washed over me, as if everything I thought I knew about her had suddenly shattered. I took a step back, the distance between us growing not just in space, but in heart. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I loved, had just torn apart everything we had built together. And now, standing in front of me, she was someone unrecognizable. I trusted you. The words slipped from my lips, barely audible, as if saying them aloud might make them any less painful. The weight of the betrayal crushed me, and I couldn't understand how it had come to this. How could she do this to me? Eva's face crumpled at the sound of my voice, her expression faltering as the first tear fell, quickly followed by others. She reached for me, her hand trembling, but I couldn't bring myself to take it. I couldn't touch her. Not like this. Not after everything had shattered in an instant. Not when the woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted with everything, had become a stranger to me. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking, fragile with regret. "I never meant for this to happen. It was a mistake, a huge mistake. Please, don't leave me." Her words hung in the air like an echo, but they didn't land where they once would have. They had no power over me anymore. The part of me that could still feel for her, the part that might have been moved by her pleading, was gone. When she walked through that door, everything had changed. Something inside me had broken. The trust was gone, and with it, any hope of repairing what we once had. The man I had been, the one who believed in love, in loyalty, in the strength of our bond, was now just a shadow of who he was. All that remained was a wreckage of a marriage destroyed by her lies. I drew in a slow, shaky breath, but I couldn't stay there any longer. I couldn't stand in that space, in that moment, and pretend everything was still the same. I turned away from her, my back stiff, as I walked toward the door. "I need time," I said, the words firm, even though my heart was breaking. "I need to figure this out, but I don't think I can ever look at you the same way again." I paused, my hand on the door, and for a brief moment, I wondered if there was anything left to say. But there wasn't. Everything that needed to be said had already been said. And then I left. It wasn't the ending I had imagined, the one I had hoped for when we first got together. There was no resolution, no closure, just a painful, undeniable truth that everything had fallen apart. The life we had shared, the trust one had placed in her, was gone, and there was no going back.